Reborn into another life, my younger brother Ryan Johnson decisively swapped fiancés with me. He said, "I'll leave the Los Angeles socialite circles to you. I'm going to marry a rich wife from those circles." In the previous life, he married Los Angeles socialite Sophia Taylor, but he didn't expect her to be naturally uninterested in romance, wholly devoted to her career, and he couldn't stand that she wouldn't go out and flirt. She locked him in the basement, and he ultimately died of depression. But thanks to the influence of wealthy Chloe Song, I moved through the world of fame and fortune with ease, admired by everyone. Seeing his arrogant, triumphant expression, I gradually curved my lips. Compared to greedy, ruthless Chloe Song, I couldn't help but be very fond of the sickly but devoted Sophia Taylor. I suddenly opened my eyes from the darkness. The scene, extraordinarily clear to behold, stunned me for 2 seconds. The familiar interior brightly lit. My adoptive parents, Mr. Johnson and Mrs. Johnson, sat in front of me, along with my brother, Ryan Johnson. Then I heard my adoptive mother, Mrs. Johnson, speak anxiously. "Ethan Johnson, the Taylor family may be considered prominent in Los Angeles, but compared to the Song family, they're still far behind. Marriage is not a game. You must choose carefully." Across from him, his younger brother Ryan Johnson was still a bit dazed, blankly looking up. "Taylor family, Song family." He scratched his head, as if he'd suddenly come to his senses. His gaze swept around and landed directly on me. "Mom, you've got it wrong. I meant choose Sophia Taylor for my brother. She's so reserved, and since my brother spends all his time doing experiments and has no other hobbies, the two of them would definitely be a match." In his previous life, Ryan Johnson fell in love with Sophia Taylor at first sight. No matter how much his adoptive parents, Mr. Johnson and Mrs. Johnson, tried to persuade him, it was useless. He was determined to marry Sophia Taylor. His adoptive parents had always spoiled him, and unable to refuse, they agreed. As a result, he and Sophia Taylor had only been married for 3 months. He couldn't stand Sophia Taylor's cool and reserved personality and her wholehearted dedication to her career. He even went out chasing after other women, spending nights lingering in bars. After being discovered by Sophia Taylor, she locked him in the basement. Days without alcohol and women drove him to develop a literal heart disease from repression. At that time, I was being taken by Chloe Song to all kinds of high-end venues, appearing immensely successful, seen by Ryan Johnson as a thorn in his side. He stubbornly believes that I stole the wealth and glory that belonged to him. But clearly, it was his own choice. Now, looking at the arrogant, triumphant smile on his face, I suddenly understood. So, Ryan Johnson had been reborn too. Hearing him say that, "My adoptive mother, Mrs. Johnson," turned her head to look at me. "If Ryan wants to marry Chloe Song, then you should form an alliance with the Taylor family." A tone that left no room for argument. I know the Johnsons adopted me. They never treated me as a real son. It's just that at that time my father died in flood relief efforts and was featured in the local news. The Johnsons were at a critical point of going public, and adopting me was just a show for others. From beginning to end, I was merely a pawn raised by the Johnsons, a companion Ryan Johnson used for amusement. In my previous life, Ryan Johnson didn't get into university and could only go abroad to polish his credentials. My adoptive mother, Mrs. Johnson, wasn't at ease, so she had me go with him overseas. By then, I had already received an acceptance letter from the best university in the country, the University of California, Los Angeles, UCLA. For the first time, I wanted to fight for an opportunity for myself. "Mom, Ryan is already an adult. He can be independent, and I have my own life to pursue." My foster mother, Mrs. Johnson, flew into a rage and slapped me hard. "I raised you to this age just so you'd talk back to me. I've always been the one whose life was arranged." Afterward, Ryan Johnson even came around proudly to brag to me. "Bro, I'll be the one to decide your life. If I go east, you can't go west." He sat on a high platform, wantonly stepping on other people's spines for amusement. But now, reborn into life. This is my chance. That night, Ryan Johnson slipped into my room without making a sound. The door lock had been kicked to pieces by him when we were very young and never fixed. He said it made it convenient for him to come find me anytime. He stood by the desk with a smile on his face, but his eyes betrayed unmistakable malice and hatred. "Brother, I'll leave the Los Angeles high society socialites to you. I'm going to marry the wealthy Los Angeles socialite Chloe Song." I continued with the carving in my hand. There was only a little left. I couldn't be distracted. Seeing I didn't react, he impatiently pushed me. The sharp blade grazed my finger, and blood quickly welled up. I pulled a tissue looked up at him calmly. Then congratulations to little brother for getting what he wanted. He crooked his mouth, smiling maliciously. Brother, if you're locked in the basement and become a monk for life, don't you dare blame me. I stood up and looked down at him in his foolish state. I smiled. Then I hope you enjoy yourself and your sister-in-law, Chloe Song's multiplayer game. He swept all the items off my desk with a raise of his hand and defiantly tipped his chin at me. Mind your mouth. Don't start spreading rumors just because you're jealous. I watched his departing back and slowly tugged at the corner of my mouth, smiling. The next day at noon, the three sets of parents arranged to have a meal together to discuss the engagement. Ryan Johnson had dressed himself up to look presentable. We arrived shortly, and the Taylor family followed. Sophia Taylor politely greeted her adoptive parents, Mr. Johnson and Mrs. Johnson. Her figure was graceful, her skin fair and translucent, and her pair of eyes glittered like a sky full of stars. She was even more beautiful than the stars on TV, and carried an unworldly, unstained elegance. No wonder Ryan Johnson, who had always been surrounded by countless lovers, fell in love with her at first sight. The moment Ryan Johnson saw Sophia Taylor, his eyes lit up, and his gaze stuck to her like a piece of adhesive tape. Sophia, I spoke up to interrupt. Miss Taylor, please sit here. I walked over and pulled out a chair for her. She smiled and softly said to me, Thank you. My younger brother Ryan Johnson looked grim, glaring at me as if he wanted to poke a hole through me. At the table, he put on a grinning, flirtatious face and fussed over Sophia Taylor with all kinds of solicitous remarks. I poured a cup of tea for Sophia Taylor and handed it to her. My eyes were on Ryan Johnson as I said, Little brother, for now on Miss Taylor is your sister-in-law, so don't be so disrespectful. Hearing the word sister-in-law, my younger brother Ryan Johnson and Sophia Taylor both looked up at me. My brother's expression went without saying. He ground his teeth as if he wanted to tear me apart. But Sophia Taylor looked at me, and the corners of her mouth slowly lifted into a smile. A flash of surprise crossed her eyes, as if she hadn't expected me to speak to Ryan Johnson that way. After the dishes were all served, Chloe Song finally hurried over. Her face still bore the fatigue of a hangover. She had probably been living it up in some bar again, truly a perfect match with Ryan Johnson. My younger brothers looked toward Chloe Song, mixed flattery and disgust. In my previous life, I only found out after marrying Chloe Song that the powerful Song family chose to marry into our Johnson family because Chloe Song led a messy private life and had a child, so they were desperate to find someone to take her off their hands. Those of similar background certainly looked down on her, and scholarly families also disdained her. Only our Johnson family, a nouveau riche with some wealth. Bluntly put, in their eyes we were money-obsessed bumpkins. I suddenly grew very curious. My brother will look like what when he finds out? My lofty younger brother Ryan Johnson. In your past life you didn't cherish a good match, so this time you can go to hell. After finalizing the engagement ceremony preparations, my brother Ryan Johnson couldn't wait to drag Chloe Song away. He's probably in some hotel right now. Even if he can't stand Chloe Song's haughty manner, he still can't escape the temptation. I took Sophia Taylor to a rooftop cafe that's been really popular lately. Ms. Taylor, I'd like to discuss a document transaction with you. She raised an eyebrow and looked at me with interest. I thought Mr. Johnson brought me here to talk about feelings. I didn't expect the usually icy-cold Ms. Taylor to make a cheeky remark. I couldn't help but laugh. She frowned slightly and looked at me. Realizing her lapse, she cleared her throat. Sorry, it's just that this kind of Ms. Taylor is... What? Adorable. She picked up the coffee on the table, lowered her head, and took a slow sip, revealing the tips of her ears flushed red. Mr. Johnson, let's talk about the cooperation you mentioned. I remember in my past life there was a project. The other party was very interested in collaborating with Taylor Group. Taylor Group did a lot of preparation for it, but in the end, Song Corporation snatched it away. Taylor Group suffered heavy losses and almost didn't survive. They didn't know why. I know. I heard you have a project that's progressing well, but there's a senior executive at the other company who hasn't been won over. Mr. Johnson really is well informed. I have a way to help Ms. Taylor secure the project smoothly, and I can also kick that stumbling block out of the way. What are the terms? My lab has a research project that is short $20 million US. Sophia Taylor tapped her fingers on the table, calmly watching me. Suddenly, she picked up the coffee on the table and raised it toward me, a faint smile on her lips. Mr. Johnson, it's been a pleasure doing business with you. The car was parked a little far away. She and I walked back side by side. The banyan trees by the roadside were sprouting new branches and shedding old leaves. A yellow leaf drifted down and settled in her hair. She still stared ahead, her long eyelashes fluttering like a butterfly's wings. Sunlight slanted across, spreading a brilliant warm glow over her snow-white skin. Like someone under a spell, I reached out and plucked the fallen leaf from her hair. She looked up, her glazed, brilliant eyes like a pool of autumnal water. My gaze roamed across her face, unwilling to leave. A man's voice, far from pleasant, interrupted the undercurrent between us. "Sophia, I'll walk you home." We both turned our heads at the same time. It was Ryan Johnson, the party pooper, coming out of the hotel. "Little brother, why did you come out so soon? Your sister-in-law will take her back, so you don't need to worry." Saying that, she ignored Ryan Johnson's ashen face. She steadied Sophia Taylor by the shoulder and only let go when they reached the car. "Sorry, Miss Taylor." She rose on her toes and leaned close to my ear. Her warm breath stirred a ticklish sensation. "Mr. Johnson, we're about to get engaged. You're being so polite. How will you fulfill your marital duties later?" I suddenly opened my eyes wide. My heart thudded against my chest, my thoughts in complete disarray. This woman is truly a femme fatale. I began to doubt whether she was really the boring woman Ryan Johnson had described. No sooner had I stepped through the door than a liquor bottle was hurled at me. The next second, a drunken, furious voice came from the top of the stairs. "Ryan Johnson. Ethan Johnson, I gave you face, didn't I? How dare you embarrass me in front of Sophia?" A wetness ran down my cheek. I wiped it with my hand. It was blood. "You should call her sister-in-law." My words seemed to set him off. He swung his fists and started pounding me. "You think that if I call you brother, you're really my brother? Remember your place. You're just the orphan my family adopted. You're what I didn't want." I grabbed his wrist and slammed him to the ground. "Young master, this time I won't indulge you. What are you going to do to me?" Ryan Johnson writhed on the ground like a fish gasping for its last breath. The reason he chose the Song family was that he was dazzled by their outward splendor and wealth. But in his heart, he always considered Sophia Taylor his possession, coveting her beauty, a typical case of wanting what's in someone else's bowl while still holding on to what's in his own. Don't say that in this life I'm Sophia Taylor's fiancée. Even if I were an irrelevant bystander, I still wouldn't just stand by and watch someone like my brother act so recklessly. "Ethan Johnson, let go of me, I'll tell Mom." I smiled. Good for nothing. Ryan Johnson tightened his grip a few degrees. The pain made him cry out loudly. Foster mother Mrs. Johnson hurriedly came downstairs when she heard the commotion, slapping me hard on the back. "What are you doing? Let go at once." Ryan Johnson scrambled up from the floor in a sorry state and painfully walked over to Foster mother Mrs. Johnson. "Mom, he's about to break my wrist." Foster mother Mrs. Johnson nervously rubbed his swollen wrist and turned to glare at me. "Ethan Johnson, hurry up and apologize to your brother." Foster father Mr. Johnson came down at that moment as well. "What are you two arguing about?" Foster mother Mrs. Johnson spat viciously. "Look at this ingrate. How dare he lay a hand on Ryan?" Foster father Mr. Johnson got furious the moment he heard that. Without another word, he kicked me in the stomach with great force, and I was sent stumbling 2 steps back. He grabbed my collar and said he was going to beat me to death. My adoptive parents' indulgence toward Ryan Johnson has always blindly been on his side. In my previous life, even though she knew Chloe's song treated me like that, she only taunted me. "If you acted like a real man, would those people notice you? If you want to eat clean, then go die. If you die, you'll be completely clean." She even sold my experimental results while I was delirious. Then when my brother was caught for having someone outside, his adoptive parents immediately ran to the Taylor household to beg for him. Did they ever care about me, even a little? Reborn into this life, I saw many things clearly. The ones who deserve to die are not me, but those beasts who treat human lives like ants. I looked at his plump body, a head shorter than mine, my gaze indifferent. If I were you, I wouldn't choose to do something as stupid as beating your adopted son during the crucial period of arranging a marriage and securing financing. Adoptive father Mr. Johnson's eyes narrowed slightly, his gaze falling heavily into mine, as if trying to see through me. Facing my calm stare, the fist he had raised slowly lowered. With a serious expression, he said to adoptive mother Mrs. Johnson and younger brother Ryan Johnson, "Recently the family is at a critical juncture, so don't cause trouble. Let this matter drop." Ryan Johnson glared at me with a face full of hatred. "I hope that when you're locked away in a dark, sunless basement, you can still be this arrogant. When I'm living a life of luxury, even if you kowtow to me, I will never soften." He left with a lofty, strutting air. I idly leaned against the entryway cabinet and glanced at my phone to check the wedding date. Less than a month to go. Eldest young Master Ryan Johnson, what will your fate be? I saw Sophia Taylor again 3 days later. I had just come out of the lab and saw her wearing a new Chinese-style ink dress, her hair casually pinned up, revealing a pale neck, standing in front of the honor wall with her head tilted back, studying something intently. I followed her line of sight and saw that it was my photo. I don't like having my picture taken. This photo was taken back in high school by some junior I don't even know, and it's hanging on the confession wall. Ms. Taylor, what brings you here? She turned around, her eyes very dark. I couldn't read her emotions. What's the matter? Do I need to give notice in advance to come see my fiancé, Ethan Johnson? As she spoke, she tilted her chin at me again. Did Ryan do this? She realized she was talking about the wound on my forehead. I nodded. I hit back. She smiled and didn't say anything more. I took her to my office. While I was pouring her tea, she took a file folder out of her bag and pushed it across to me. You were right. That executive's tastes really are damned. My hand paused mid-pour. I set the teapot down without showing a sign. No one understands how damned he is better than the one he bullied. This executive was one of the decision-makers for the project. In my previous life, Song Corporation was able to snatch the project from Taylor Group because he courted me so persistently at the party. Chloe Song noticed and got me drunk, packing me off into his arms. I still remember the feeling of that muddy breath settling on my skin. Disgusting, so disgusting. For these shameless scoundrels, finding young, good-looking boys to amuse themselves is not hard. What's hard is finding playthings from good families who have never been involved in this circle. This way they don't lower their status, and they can enjoy the thrill of taming. In my previous life, Chloe Song used drugs to control me, to consolidate her business empire, pushing me into the abyss again and again. I suffered terribly while she reveled in piles of money. In my younger brother's eyes, the high-end banquet that seemed endlessly glorious was nothing but the key that opened the gates of hell. Now I have been reborn. Song Corporation should go bankrupt. I calmly opened the file folder and looked at the twisted, bizarre photos inside, one by one. Ms. Taylor, wait a little longer. I'll give you the Song family, too. She looked up and gazed at me quietly, emotions mingling in her eyes. Mr. Johnson, I feel like you've changed. I lifted the teacup and took a casual sip. Do you believe me if I say I've died once? The dark shade in her eyes faded, and I could see the sorrow spreading there. I had a dream. In the dream, I learned of your news and rushed to save you, but in the end, I didn't make it in time. Luckily this time, we were together from the very beginning. As if guided by fate, I reached out and touched her brows and eyes. The soft, glutinous sensation spreading from my fingers made me realize what I had done, and I hastily pulled my hand back. But it was already a step too late. Sophia Taylor froze for a moment, then grasped my hand in return. She slowly moved closer along the edge of the table, enclosing me within a small space. Fiancé, what are you hiding from? Her breath was right there, mere inches from me. I rasped, Miss Taylor, what do you want to do? Before I could finish, her sudden kiss cut me off. I snapped my eyes wide open, staring at her in disbelief. She awkwardly nuzzled my lips for a while, then pulled back a little, clutching my collar and breathing lightly. You'll marry me sooner or later, so I'm just exercising a wife's rights early. What's the problem with that? I looked at her, the emotions swirling in my eyes no longer containable. When a woman takes the initiative, it's really deadly. You're right. I reached up, ran my hand through her hair, and leaned in to kiss her. A faint scent of gardenias came from her. It smells just like the gardenia bouquet I gave to a little girl with tear-streaked, flower-stained cheeks when I was a child. My lips and tongue and the pads of my fingers pressed against her neck are all burning hot. My voice carries an undertow of desire. Do you want me to go deeper, fiancé? Her face flushed, her fingers gripping my lapel tightly, eyes carrying the hazy affection of a young girl. In an instant, it burned away all my reason. Near the end of the month, Sophia Taylor went to San Francisco for business. I was busy with experiments, but still made time to send her messages whenever I could. She would stop to share any novel or curious thing she encountered with me. We, like all young couples, enjoyed a simple and sweet romance. Sophia Taylor's birthday was coming up, and that afternoon I wanted to go to the mall to pick out a gift for her. Suddenly, I spotted a familiar figure in the distance. It's Chloe Song. Even though in my previous life she and I were married, there were many things about her I didn't know. Now, at a time when she should have been busy at the company, She walked into the courtyard restaurant beside it with a short, fat man. My heart tightened sharply, and I took a few hurried steps forward. The moment I stepped in, the man happened to turn his head. As if struck by an electric current, I froze in place. Isn't this the senior executive Keith Sue who colluded with Chloe Song in my previous life? I secretly followed them with my phone recording, hid behind the rockery, and just happened to overhear their conversation. Ms. Song is even willing to put her own husband up for everyone to share, so I'll certainly let Ms. Song have her wish for this project. Chloe Song snorted, her voice sullen. He's just a man. Our friendship is far more important. Mr. Sue, don't you agree? Besides, what I want isn't just this project. I want Taylor Group as well. I always thought that the dirty collusion between Chloe Song and him began with that banquet. It turned out they had been hooking up long before. That dinner was merely a trap using me as a sacrifice. No wonder in my previous life, Chloe Song insisted on taking me along, even though she knew I hated socializing. However, there was one thing I've always found strange. Although the Taylor family wasn't as wealthy as the Song family, their strength was by no means to be underestimated. Sophia Taylor had shown a talent for business since childhood. At 20, she attended the top business school to study for an MBA, then returned home to take over Taylor Group. So why did a woman like Sophia Taylor keep losing to Chloe Song? Why would a single failed project collaboration result in such heavy losses? My heart was full of questions. I really wanted to ask Sophia Taylor, but I was afraid that confronting her too soon would put her in danger. After much thought, I decided to start with Chloe Song to gather information. Just after midnight, I stepped through the door of the bar. Sure enough, I found Chloe Song on the dance floor, twisting and enjoying herself to the fullest. Miss Song, long time no see. She leaned against my ear, as if flirting. Ethan Johnson, you go to bars too. I came here specifically to find you. She led me to a private room. Unlike the wildly noisy atmosphere of the dance floor, this place was very quiet. Though only a wall apart, it was a different world. Chloe Song came over holding a wine glass and asked if I wanted a drink. I nodded. Her eyes flickered with flirtation. After taking a sip, she handed the glass to me. A bright lipstick mark was left on the rim. I looked at the wine glass and raised an eyebrow. I heard Miss Song has been investing in a project recently. Could you help introduce me? She perked up. I always thought you were someone who didn't meddle in business. I lowered my head and smiled helplessly. You know, I never had much standing in the Johnson family, and my adoptive parents are about to retire. They'll definitely hand the family business over to my brother Ryan. So I have to think about my own future. Sophia Taylor is your fiancée. If you want a way out, why not go to her? Men, you know all about pride. Her gaze measured me inch by inch, finally settling on my face. She suddenly curled her lips into a smile. A hint of greed flashed in her eyes, but she hid it well. Come here tomorrow night at 8. She handed me a slip of paper with an address written on it. The car stopped at a secluded private restaurant. After winding along the courtyard corridor, the innermost private room had its door open. Keith Sue saw me come in and didn't take his eyes off me. Mr. Johnson, I intend to collaborate with Ms. Song's company. My name is Keith Sue. Ms. Song said you want to work with us too. I forced back a strong wave of nausea and smiled as I lifted my glass to make polite conversation. If Mr. Sue is willing to give me this opportunity, I will certainly do my utmost to make a success. Seeing Mr. Sue and Ms. Song like this, you two have known each other for many years, right? Keith Sue refilled my glass. Ms. Song and I have known each other for many years. Saying that, he looked at me deeply once more and added, I and Ms. Song really regret meeting each other too late. Among so many partners, only Ms. Song understands my tastes. I struggled hard not to vomit in his face. Of course, Chloe Song didn't really intend to bring me into the business. She only wanted to use me to win Keith Sue's heart. In her view, I didn't understand politics, had no power to fight back, and yet happened to have a pretty face. Since I was the one who came to her, she could take advantage of the pretext of bringing me into the business to trick me onto those beast beds. After several rounds of drinking, Chloe Song said she was stepping out to take a call. Keith Sue spoke as if casually. Ethan, from now on, just work with your brother. I've got a lot of resources here. Then he listed them to me, his brothers in high positions from every industry. I suddenly realized that the reason Chloe Song was so eager to please him, aside from his own status, was because of that group of upper-class connoisseurs with particular tastes backing him. No wonder she was able to keep the Taylor family under her thumb. I tightened my fingers hard around the wine glass. As he drew closer and closer, I pretended I needed to go to the restroom. Dizzy, I walked to the private room door and opened it. A gust of cold wind, carrying a faint scent of gardenia, blew in. The light slanted across the thin figure of the person in front of me, casting a long shadow. A jolt ran through me, and I was completely awake. Ryan Johnson stood under a pillar nearby, pride in his voice. "Sophia, see? I told you there was something wrong with him." The corridor lights cast a warm yellow glow. Fell on Sophia Taylor's face, but it carried a chill. She saw it. Ryan Johnson was still fanning the flames at her side. "Sophia, I'll take you back right now to ask my parents to call off the engagement." In the chaos of my thoughts, I caught a thread and saw Chloe Song at the corner with a look of assured victory. She was trying to drive me to a dead end. Sophia Taylor walked over, lightly curving a sneer, then raised her hand and slapped me hard across the face. "Ethan Johnson, we're finished." Leaving those words behind, she turned and walked away. When I hurried downstairs, I saw Sophia Taylor getting into the car. Ryan Johnson laughed loudly behind me. A clown. After that day, Sophia Taylor didn't contact me for a long time. News of my falling out with her spread quickly within our circle. At that time, my adoptive parents, Mr. Johnson and Mrs. Johnson, came to see me. Instead of being angry that I had upset the Taylor family, they wanted me to take over Johnson Enterprise. "Ethan, Mom is strict with you because she wants to train you. You don't blame Mom, do you?" "How could that be, Mom? I'm the one who should be thanking you." Foster father Mr. Johnson cleared his throat twice on the side. "We're here today to discuss with you taking over Johnson Enterprise." I feigned concern. "What about that younger brother, Ryan?" Foster father Mr. Johnson cut me off. "You don't need to worry about him. You're the older brother. Would you just abandon your brother?" "All right, it's decided. Come to the company next Wednesday to sign the contract." I looked up and gave a smile. "Got it, Dad. I will work hard to grow the company big and strong. I won't let you down." My adoptive parents specifically told me to keep this matter secret before they left. The car quickly disappeared from sight. I turned around. The smile vanished in an instant, my expression cold. At the evening family dinner, Ryan Johnson said smugly, "Chloe is pregnant. We're planning to move the wedding up. She's afraid she'll look bad in a wedding dress if she's showing." The family was all congratulating him. He suddenly changed tack. "Bro, you still haven't made up with Sophia, have you? Everyone's saying your marriage is off. Is that true? Even if she and I can't be together, it's not your place to become a son-in-law of the Taylors. Why are you worrying about this?" He grabbed the bowl on the table and hurled it at me. I sidestepped to avoid it. He came over, pressed his hand on my shoulder, and sneered into my ear. "Someone like you who comes from the slums is born with a worthless life. Even if you rely on my family and become young Master Johnson, you'll still have a trace of poverty about you. Be sensible and do dong chir toyihun. A woman like Sophia Taylor is only worthy of me." At this moment, he was still indulging in daydreams of eating here and lodging there. He still had no idea what kind of life he was about to go through. Even if a whole lifetime had passed, everything would start over again. The 6 months I was married to Chloe Song still feel like a nightmare to me. Every day I was bound hand and foot and forced to be injected with overdoses of drugs. My brain was foggy, and there were almost no moments of clarity. That kind of near-death agony. Ryan Johnson, how long could you have endured it? I looked up and saw the faint puncture mark on his arm. Suddenly I laughed. "Wish you happiness, little brother." Perhaps because the memories of my past life were too cruel, the smile on my face made Ryan Johnson take a step back. As if realizing his reaction made him lose face, he muttered a curse to put on a brave front. Heavy rain hammered the glass outside, the gloom hiding every trace of daylight. Under the harsh white indoor light, my foster father, Mr. Johnson, sat across from me wearing a full, fake smile and pushed a pen toward me. "Ethan, sign." I don't know why, but my eyes suddenly filled with warmth. "Dad, will you feel guilty about me?" My adoptive father, Mr. Johnson's smile froze for a moment, the furrowed brow declaring his patience was about to run out. Yet he still suppressed his temper and spoke kindly to me. "You child, what are you talking nonsense about? Hurry up and sign." Seeing his reaction, I breathed a sigh of relief, counting silently in my head. 3, 2. With a bang, the front door was pushed open with force. The secretary stood at the doorway with an apologetic look. "Sorry, Mr. Johnson. Young Master Ryan wanted to come in, and I couldn't stop him." Adoptive father Mr. Johnson waved his hand. The secretary closed the door and stepped back. Ryan Johnson stormed over angrily and snatched the transfer agreement from the table. "Dad, what do you mean?" "I'm her biological son. and you're secretly transferring the family's property to a bastard you adopted. Foster father Mr. Johnson said anxiously, "Son, give me the agreement first. This isn't what you think. Wait until your brother signs, and I'll explain it to you when we get back." Ryan Johnson clutched the contract tightly to his chest, refusing to give an inch. "Do you take me for a fool? Once you sign, I'll have nothing to do with it." I watched my adoptive father, Mr. Johnson, look helplessly anxious because of my presence, and thoughtfully step back to give them space to talk. The moment the elevator doors closed, I still couldn't help but laugh. Ryan Johnson, that idiot. Johnson Enterprise had been in trouble for a long time, and my adoptive parents had planned from the start to push me out as the scapegoat. The money on the books had long been transferred overseas, leaving behind nothing but a heavily indebted shell company. As soon as I signed that transfer agreement, all the debts will be mine. With Ryan Johnson causing a fuss like this, the plan fell apart. I'm curious whether my adoptive parents will make their most spoiled son, Ryan Johnson, sign. How much is the button of family affection worth in their eyes? While I walked out of the Johnson Enterprise office building, the rain had long since stopped. A white Mercedes was parked by the flower bed. I walked over, opened the car door, and got in. Sophia Taylor was gripping the steering wheel without looking back. The car pulled up at her house. She took a bottle of fine vintage red wine from the liquor cabinet. We sat on the terrace of the little garden. "You should have told me your plans sooner." I checked my cheek, still shaken, and said, "You react quickly." That slap made my cheek ache, woo-woo. She burst out laughing. "Serves you right. How did that thing you were looking into turn out?" She took a sip of wine, her gaze icy. "As you guessed, Chloe Song and Keith Sue met 5 years ago at an auction. Since then, Chloe Song has been finding people for Keith Sue to use for their pleasures, including underage boys. Most were lured there by deceit. Some tried to make trouble, but it was all suppressed. I understood those struggles, that helplessness and despair in the dark nights. Sophia, justice may sometimes be tripped up by many things, but it will never kneel to injustice. Only by shattering the shell they wove with power will those faint sparks gather together and become a prairie fire. Fueled by the wine, I still voiced the doubt in my heart. "Sophia, have you never doubted me?" A gust of wind tousled the fine hair at her forehead. She raised her hand to sweep it back, revealing a smooth, full brow. Her face was flushed with wine, but her eyes were clear. "Ethan Johnson, I knew you for many years before you ever met me. Why would I not believe you?" As the night grew late, she leaned against my shoulder like a little cat and slowly fell asleep. A shallow breath lifted the stray hairs at the nape of my neck. In my lifetime of fighting alone, she gave me unwavering companionship. While I gently laid her on the bed and tucked the blanket around her, preparing to leave, she kicked the covers off. I tucked them back in, and not long after she kicked them off again. I smiled and couldn't help but plant a kiss on her forehead. And so, I kept watch by her bedside through the night. Just before dawn, I hurried away. I didn't want to give her the embarrassment of waking up. Ryan Johnson and Chloe Song's wedding was held a month later. The day before the wedding, they registered their marriage. That night, Ryan Johnson came out of his adoptive father Mr. Johnson's study and swaggered into my room. "I've already signed a transfer agreement. Don't think you will get a single cent." I specifically waited until Ryan Johnson had received the certificate before making him sign. Once he inherits the debt, it will become joint marital debt. Even toward my most beloved biological son, this is as far as I'll go. Ryan Johnson was still studying my expression. I remained calm. "Congratulations." Maybe because I didn't show the sadness and anger he expected, he got irritable. He snatched the book from my hands and tore it to pieces. "What are you acting all high and mighty for? Who knows how much pain you're hiding right now? Sophia Taylor doesn't want you, and you won't get a single cent from this family. You're a useless failure. I'm just waiting for you to come crying to beg me." I suddenly grabbed his neck and pressed him against the wall. "Is that so? Then you'd better treasure tomorrow's wedding ceremony." On the wedding day, the MC was narrating the story of how they fell in love. Next, please enjoy the VCR. What played on the screen, however, was not the loving footage they had filmed together, but a series of audio recordings and videos. Under the live-streaming cameras across the internet, the filthy deal had nowhere to hide. When Ryan Johnson saw himself bound to a bed on the screen, paraded for others' entertainment, he rushed up to Chloe Song and kicked her hard off the stage. Chloe Song tumbled to the floor, clutching her stomach and screaming. The scandal about Chloe Song's sexual dealings instantly shot to the top of the trending searches. For a time, many people she had coerced came forward one after another to publicly accuse her. She and the people behind Keith Sue were all caught in one sweep. Her adoptive parents, Mr. Johnson and Mrs. Johnson, who had not yet finished watching the commotion, were taken away by the police. Ryan Johnson gradually realized what price he had paid for signing the transfer agreement. He sat on the ground in despair. I asked him with a smile, "On such a joyous day, why aren't you smiling? Were you born not to smile?" His whole body trembled. He tried to stand up to hit me, but his legs were too weak to get him up. Of course, they never expected that in the hands of a parasite like me, one that can only cling to a host to survive, I would be allowed to burn through my last shred of usefulness and then quietly die. Precisely because I had been constantly overlooked, I could strike a lethal blow when they let down their guard. The Johnsons and the Songs were crushed overnight. The Taylors became the biggest winners. Sophia Taylor was so busy, she hardly had time to stop. My research project was also progressing very smoothly. I closed the big deal and was swamped. We didn't meet again until 3 months later. The car stopped at my high school, Los Angeles High School. She took my hand and headed into the school, but Uncle David, the security guard at the main gate, stopped us. She calmly took off her mask. "Uncle David, it's me, Sophia." The uncle carefully examined Sophia Taylor's face, trying hard to recall. "Oh, it's you all grown up now. I remember you crying in the bushes because the boy you liked went abroad." Sophia Taylor hurriedly changed the subject. "Uncle David, my boyfriend Ethan is still here. I'll bring him in to take a look, and we'll be right out." The uncle cheerfully let us in. "Which year are you from?" "2 school years younger than you." "So, she's a junior in elementary school." Sophia Taylor stopped walking and stared at my face intently. "You really don't remember her at all?" I shook my head in bewilderment. She sighed and asked me, "Why did you go abroad back then?" Then she added, "That photo on your lab's honor wall was taken by me." Her words were disjointed, but I vaguely understood some of it. Then she took me to the bookstore on the back street of my high school in Los Angeles, where I loved to read and do problems during high school. Her voice was very soft and gentle. There was a girl who wanted to buy a book, but the last copy was bought by a boy. Seeing the girl wanted it, the boy gave it to her. After that, the girl often went to the bookstore and always saw the boy sitting quietly reading in the corner. The girl would sit at the table next to him day after day. After the boy went abroad, the girl would sit in the seat he used to occupy, thinking of him. It's a very cheesy story. A warmth flowed through my body as I held her tightly in my arms. "Sophia, blame me for being too slow for so many years. From now on, I'll be the one to watch over you." The bookstore smelled of old ink, as if drifting in from a long ago past. Outside the window, the sun shone brightly and the cherry blossoms were in full bloom. It was the spring when everything comes back to life.